Welcome to the Anti-Architect Podcast. I am your host, Christian Giordano. As president and owner of the design firm Mancini Duffy, I am driven by a quest for learning and radically changing the industry. With this podcast, I'm hoping to improve the industry that I'm so passionate about by taking a critical look at how architects work through a variety of voices and shared experiences. John, thanks so much for taking the time to be my guest here on the Anti-Architect Podcast.
Anything anti, I'm into.
I know you are.
No, only because I like change, and I feel, looking at things the same way years and years and years is not the right way to be in business. So, and I'm so happy to be on your show. Thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. I appreciate it. You obviously had me on your podcast. Yes. And I said the same thing. I'm going to say it again just in case people didn't hear it. You've been extremely generous to me over my career. You've been a mentor to me in terms of when I started it, I took over my firm and you kind of we had a bunch of conversations along the way. One of the things you told me was you need to delegate. Why would you do it that way? You need to delegate. And I'm not that good at delegating still, but I'm getting better. So again, I want to thank you for obviously all of that. You also had great advice on technology, which we've pushed forward. Tons of things. I guess my first question is, who's your mentor?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Or mentors.
I've said this before. My mother, forget mentor, has had the single biggest impact on me in my life, and for multiple reasons. One is she just always was so concerned about what other people are doing and how to insert herself to help someone to be better or connect someone with someone. Like, she got such joy out of helping. And I watched it my whole life, and I it really has impacted me, and it's something that I think I'm the happiest when I'm helping someone.
Nice.
The other thing, and my father too, but my mother had a bout with cancer. So when I was 15 years old, she came home and basically said she had breast cancer in 17 lymph nodes, and that's not good. Even at a young age, I understood that, oh my God, the greatest thing in my life is in jeopardy, or one of the greatest things in my life. And what she told me never left my head, which was, John, now that I know, I'm going to literally beat this. I'm going to go into the shower every night and wash every cancer cell out of my body because I believe I can. So don't you worry. We're all in this together. And it just showed me the power of belief, because she, a year later, went into remission where she probably shouldn't be here. And they used her after that to go into the hospital for all the interns that came in for the, trying to be in the, that business, to show that mindset also matters, not just medicine.
It's true.
And so I've always said you have to believe it before you see it, which most people want to see it before they believe it. So as far as a mentor or moment, that was my gigantic moment. She taught me what it really means to believe something, because it's easy to believe until you got something so big on the line, which is your life, that you're actually going to get through it. So any entrepreneur, if you listen to any of their stories, which is my podcast, they've all had that moment where either someone could touch them on the shoulder and push them through, or they had someone that impacted them in that way. So I know that's a long-winded answer.
No, that's great.
That's my
great.
answer.
And I think I talked about that a little bit on your show too. With me, it was my parents that believed in me, that pushed me forward. I wasn't a good student. I was a terrible student.
Right.
And somehow, but I had this confidence from them, whether it was warranted or not. It didn't matter. And I then believed, I can accomplish these things. I'm just as good as anybody else. Whether I was or wasn't, it didn't matter. And I just plowed through.
To me, belief in yourself and what you're doing in the world around you is what I think gets you through every issue that will come up in front of you. Because without belief, it's nothing. Look at sports, athletes, business leaders, and anyone within an organization that has a strong belief. Doesn't mean you're always right, but at least you can break through barriers that you never thought you could, right?
Sure, absolutely. So I kind of think of you as the anti-developer, anti-landowner, anti-building owner. I actually wrote that down as one of my titles here in my notes. And, most owners and developers have been pulling out of New Jersey, the tri-state area, but you stayed. And I feel like during this period post-COVID, you acquired more, millions of square feet. And from what I can see on the outside, it paid off. So what convinced you that this region was worth investing in?
First of all, I love New Jersey. I think it has so much to offer. Everyone thinks it's the Sopranos show when you see them going down the turnpike, and it's just this small little piece that everyone thinks New Jersey is, which they're so wrong. I mean, we have so many areas: the beach, we have mountains, we have everything that any state should have.
I agree,
including great people. Great school systems, all the things that I think young families that would move in would care about, and people that are staying here would care about. But listen, real estate is a local business, and no one's an overnight success, right? So you could always run somewhere to do something else because you think it's better, or you could use all the intelligence and experience and know-how of your career as you were going up and apply it as you get older. And as you get older, your relationships get stronger. The markets that you're in, better. You can see the changes. So I think as long as you're able to move with what's the momentum, meaning as much as, Jersey was a big office market, remember the telecoms had a big presence. You had
Absolutely.
AT&T, you had Bell Labs, and they're all still here. But, we've been a firm believer real estate's so local, you have to be the best, right? You can't be average and then execute the way we do. You have to be the best in the markets and understand the products that you're developing or fixing or changing. And, we pivoted into life sciences. We pivoted into industrial. A lot of the office sites that were great office sites are now industrial sites or residential sites. We're also involved in some residential redevelopment. So we just said, okay, we know the market. Let's pivot into what's going to be there. Let's get ahead of it. And let's be the change agents of what's the future of New Jersey is. And everything has momentum. You just got to find where that momentum is. And listen, we had COVID, we had interest rate hikes, which it slows things down, but that doesn't change the fact that, e-commerce is different, right? People are getting things delivered to their house within 24 hours. I know that's been happening for a while, but you need the infrastructure. So I think as a real estate person, you got to figure out what infrastructure am I creating in the communities that we're involved in that will add the biggest value and impact to wherever you're doing it.
Sure.
And that's what we're doing. And it's so far working out.
You're the hot landlord.
Well, I don't know what that means, but we are executing well, right?
Yes, you are.
So if you look at the amount of office buildings that have been knocked down for, other uses, and we have a project up in Parsippany, the Arbors. I mean, there's got to be 800, 900, 1,000 units being built around our complex of older office properties or other properties that are being demolished. Got a Lifetime Fitness coming across the street. We spend a lot of money. We think now the amenity in office is energy.
Yeah.
And when people look at me and I say that, they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, people being there. Feel like when you go into a Starbucks or a retail store that you feel the energy. Office buildings have to deliver that, right? Yeah. Which means, and it's interesting, even with tenants that are moving in now, everyone's sort of trying to recreate their culture for the future. And some of my questions, which you never asked before, is how many days you come into the office? Because I just think it's important. We're spending all this money on great cafeteria experiences, all the different experiences that tenants can partake in. We want people there to be able to use them. And we want other people to feel there's energy in the building when you're walking around. And we're starting to see that and feel that. It's starting to move in that direction. I'm sure you have some
for sure. That absolutely.
Well.
Yeah, the office building in terms of the elephant sitting in the middle of a parking lot that had a crappy cafeteria is never going to survive.
Right.
It's got to be in a dynamic. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a downtown environment, but it has to be somewhere that's dynamic around it.
Yep.
And I think one of the cool things that you've done, I know your Jersey City buildings, you've curated all of your tenants in terms of not just the office tenants, but also the retail tenants and the food experience that's there. You have a cool cookie place, and you have the dumpling place, and but you've really thought through why else are people going to come into this building, right?
Right.
Not just the tenants. And if
Right.
the tenants are in there, what variety are they going to have? They don't want to get a crappy turkey sandwich at
Right.
the same place day after day after day. There's no point in coming to the office.
Well,
then.
and listen, if it's a complex that has a great cafe experience, you have to have the right operator. I mean, it's not just a peanut butter and jelly sandwich anymore and a salad. I mean, if you look at some of our buildings, even like when you walk into the cafes, they're like restaurant level, right? We have outside seating. We have town hall ability. So if you want to have a meeting, you could, cater from the restaurant and basically in the next room you could have a big town hall type of situation for your companies. Remember, the mid-sized companies don't have everything in their facilities that, suffice these large corporate entities like Facebook and Google that have these gigantic campuses. So what we have to do is create the same dynamic so that any company that occupies our space can feel like they have that to a certain point without obviously spending money that they can't, right? And it works because, listen, the biggest thing is how do you get talent to your company? Like, talent management at companies now is one of the most important things today, especially with all the change. So that's how we feel we're adding to it by the experience, the culture ability that the building can offer, the location, obviously, and what it does to impact the community. Right?
Are you tracking data? How many people come into the building? How these, who's using it, that kind of thing?
As technology focused as I am, the greatest indicator is looking at the parking lot.
Okay.
And, businesses have different things. They, people are out on meetings, running around, but our parking lots are starting to be very full.
Okay.
And that's the most exciting thing that I see when I pull into any of our complexes is, a mostly full parking lot, which means we have a mostly full building, which means everyone's actually believing in the concept of what, an office building was in the past, right? It's going to be different. There's flexibility. There's all the things that nothing stays the same, right? Another lesson I learned actually from my father, which is I consider him a mentor and still, is nothing's permanent. Like nothing stays the same. So you have to have an open mind. You have to execute on what you think your plan is, but you really have to have an open mind on what someone is maybe saying to you in passing, or someone comes up with something that, like, why do we do it this way all the time? And not that you change it, but you have to be willing to take that information and process it.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sure for you as the owner, right, the building owner, I'm sure for you COVID it had to be a little scary, right? There was a point in which all you ever heard, I remember sitting there in my house listening to CNBC or whatever, and nobody's ever going back to an office ever again. This isn't happening. Or the 6-foot office, it was going to take you 45 minutes to get up the elevator alone. Why would anyone come up there? So, but at some point, when is it that you realized, oh, wait a minute, actually, while this hasn't been great, there's opportunity?
Well, listen, that whole experience was just scary on its face, and you had no idea what was going on. Right. All you did was, it's like survival skills kick in. What am I going to do? How are our tenants going to be? Like we really focus more on the retail. Listen, the tenants that had software businesses or legal service businesses or accounting service businesses, people that actually could work from home, sustain themselves. It was the retail tenants that lost 100% of their revenue day one. So we focused in on how can we help some of the tenants at our shopping centers in different ways, And at that time, everyone was in it together. Like the lenders knew, everyone knew we all had to figure this out together, and we all did, which I thought it worked out well. But as far as opportunity, I think everything sort of got back to sort of normal from COVID. It was the interest rates that sort of are changing the direction of where the markets are going.
I assume that's still impacting you now?
It's impacting everyone. But, and this is the problem. When rates were zero and you bought a product thinking the value was X, and today they're at, the 10 years of 4 something, right? Mm-hmm. Your value's different, right? No matter what. So unless you created enough value over and above what you thought it was worth through leasing, if you had a stabilized asset, unless you were, your debt was amortizing, you have no chance except like maybe to have to write a check back into that deal. If you had an empty building, you created extra value, you may get to where the values were, but it's difficult. So I think that's what's going on right now. Everyone's sort of recasting what values are, trying to understand, how to get their properties refinanced. Some are, some aren't. So that will create other opportunity. The thing that was also interesting during the cycle is the amount of buildings that became different uses. So an office building became an industrial building or a retail center or an apartment complex, which then actually helped some of those properties because if you're an older office building that had a wrong value on it, right, and a loan coming due, and you could get it rezoned to something different, you had an unbelievable chance to actually make that an ongoing entity, an ongoing concern. So,
I think you're also fortunate being more Jersey focused rather than New York City focused.
Right.
So those owners in New York City that are trying to do building conversions to something else, it's very difficult to do. The city wants to accommodate from a zoning point of view, but it's still just very difficult to convert a giant office building into a residential building or something else because you have so much square footage on it. You have 60,000 square foot floor plates. That doesn't make a nice residential building.
Yeah, listen, every conversion's hard. And the city's, we don't do a lot there, so I don't understand all the different, rules that apply. But any conversion's hard. I mean, listen, most of the conversions in New Jersey have been knockdowns, right? So you're basically saying shouldn't be that anymore. You get the right zoning, you knock it down, and you start from scratch. But any conversions from a product that was to something new, you're going to have a lot more nuance. So it's all about price, right? Like as long as you understand, first of all, that it works architecturally, right? I mean, like office buildings don't lend themselves that well just on elevator banks and the size of the
egress and all that
stuff. You just need enough latitude price-wise to be able to maybe do things that you normally wouldn't do. But we're all going to have to go here and make it work, and it's going to take time, but it'll get done. It'll get done over time.
Do you see any pushback with with manufacturing and distribution facilities, industrial, from communities?
Yeah, I mean, I guess they call it NIMBY, like not in my backyard. So we've seen that. Listen, we had a huge surge of it. So obviously, after a while, people get concerned with trucks and traffic, and at the end of the day, towns sometimes want other types of uses than just industrial. Depends what town it is. But I mean, Jersey's had sort of a pullback in that. But things ebb and flow. At the end of the day, I think you need to understand what town you're doing business in, what product you're bringing to the table. Do they feel it's something that's going to add to the community? And it's a sort of combined effort.
And at the end of the day, it doesn't affect the school systems, which is good. A lot of towns appreciate that, right? That's always a big thing. And the traffic, I think once they realize it's not terrible, it's done at certain hours.
I mean, like with the so the e-commerce companies want to get as close to the customer as possible. So that's could be a lot of trucks that are pulling out. Depends when they do it, the time. But, they have to come in and out to deliver in the time frame that they're saying we're going to get you.
Yeah, I'm selecting, when I order stuff on Amazon, some says it'll be delivered between 2 and 4 in the morning, and I try to unselect that option. I think it's weird. I don't need it between 2 and 4 in the morning.
Right. Well, they're giving you options, which is
crazy.
Sort of, we have so many options today. It's sort of crazy.
So let's talk a little bit about architects.
Okay.
So if you had to pick one thing, what annoys you most about working with architects?
I'm not going to single out architects. I'm just going to single out business in general. Every relationship is about trust, responsiveness, creativity, and owning it. Like that. We all get scattered, unfortunately, where we want to grow and grow and grow, and sometimes we take on too much, and you can never deliver the focus necessary, I think. I do my best work when I'm focused on one thing, and I say to myself, I don't need to think about anything else for a while. Like, this is it. This is my project. This is what I have to get done. It may take a week. It may take 2 weeks. So I think that the most important thing for me is responsiveness and the trust that that's going to happen. Okay. Because like your firm, there's other firms that are unbelievably creative, right? Everyone has a different bent on how they do things. And what you do is it's like going to an ice cream store. Like what flavor do I need for this project? And because like what you do, in say entertainment and other industries, maybe someone else doesn't. So like you're always going to be in the lead on that. So, office buildings, industrial. It's everyone has their forte.
I agree.
But to me, it's like responsiveness, because I think business. Someone always used to tell me, time kills deals. Time kills deals. Like, so I never want to be feeling like I'm held up with the creativity part or the part that I don't have control over.
Okay.
So responsive, it's everything. It's because like we'll have a tenant that'll come that we don't choose the timing that they show up at our building. So all of a sudden, like a week ago, we got a major tenant that we thought was going somewhere else, and now they're coming back in a week, and we need to create a presentation that we need to know that our firm is going to not drop everything, but at least have the resources to get that to us in a 24-hour, 48-hour period, so that we can be ready for what it is, and that's business.
Absolutely, I agree. And one of the things I stress with my firm and everyone that works there is I think of us like a three-legged stool, right? Design is what we do. We're design, but then equally as important is the method in which we deliver it, which is our technology, and then as equally important is our customer service and how responsive we are to clients.
It's so important.
I've said this on this podcast. I say it all the time. I get up and say it in front of our in our town halls at our company. If I'm copied on an email, if it's not directed at me and it's from a client, and I watch it and the day goes by and it hasn't been responded to, it starts burning a hole in my eye. And I now I'm teamsing or texting or chatting like, who's responding to this email? If you want, I'll respond to it, but I'm going to say it's going to get done tomorrow. And if that's not the right answer,
I'll tell you why
chime in.
So you and me being entrepreneurs, starting companies, we have a sense of urgency that is a little different than most. Not right or wrong. But to me, the big, like I've always said over the years, like just answer, even like I'd rather someone say they can't get it to me for a week. Yes. If I have this thing coming, we just can't do it. Okay, how else can we get, at least I know, and I could be responsive to what we have to do to fix it or change it.
Yes.
And, I'm a firm believer that like my rule's always, I have to always answer somebody within 24 hours.
Yeah.
If I'm doing something for them as a service. Like,
that's
how
the
do you
YPO rule?
Yeah, so I feel it's rude not to. So, but not everyone's the same. So it's a culture of what that means to be able to get people to think that way. It's like thinking about things that I always say to myself, like when I'm working on something, can I look at this a different way? Like that's why you want smart people around you, smarter people than you around you, because there's so many ways to look at things. You just gotta give your brain the ability to do that, and people get stuck. So I think it's important, and service to me is everything. Yeah,
and I agree. It's the hey, yes, we can do this, or no, we can, or hey, we're looking into it. Give us a few more hours to figure it out.
There's nothing wrong with a no. People are so afraid to say no.
I know.
Like if you look at any successful person, they say no more than yes, and that's like, how many people am I taking on this month? Like Like you can't overdo it; it won't work.
So this is a lesson you taught me very early on: is you have to start saying no to things.
Yes,
you're doing too much, and I agree. There are, because I could go out to 4 coffees in a morning with someone that wants to have coffee, and it's not that I'm not interested in them or maybe what they can bring to the table or how we can help them, whatever that might be. It's just I've got to say no. I do need downtime. I need to work on actual stuff, right? Or think through projects.
You gotta split it up. You gotta find an equilibrium. I just think it's critical because it doesn't end well.
Yeah. So budgets are always a factor in everything, and you guys take a lot of risk early on. How do you balance those costs with good design goals, all those amazing amenities and things, and as you said, you come in and it's a different feeling, it's a different everything. How do you kind of tell the architect or the designer, hey, this is the budget? How do you keep them in line with all of that?
Well, I think you start out at the most creative you can be and work the other way, right? Because until you understand, the cost of what you really want to do, you can't scale back. So at least me personally, I like to see like the most creative experience possible.
That's great.
It may take a little more time because like we always scale back.
Yeah.
But if you give a budget in theory, you're limiting the creativity of maybe somebody thinking something that you would take that instead of the other thing that you thought you would do.
Yep, good point.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So that's how I look at things. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to be limited in creativity at the very beginning.
Yeah. We also don't really know what anything costs. That's something I say all the time on the show,
Right.
is that we architects really don't know how much. We know what the last project cost, and so we've got some idea.
Right.
But we're coming in fresh to something, we don't know. We don't know what the HVAC impacts are going to be in a building, or
Right.
if you're opening up a lobby and tripling the height. I mean, there's a lot of things in there. So I agree. Come in, let's do ideas, because there might be one or two ideas that can then be done more budget friendly. Maybe they're a good idea for down the road on another thing.
Yeah, and what I'm proud of, like we have some real successes in the office world.
Yeah.
Over the last 7 years, right? like where we've taken buildings down to the steel. Mm-hmm. We have one in Morristown. So the cool thing is, we can point to success stories that have worked and at least direct the firm, go look at it, or they've done it. Let's recreate this here and see, basically what the cost difference would be, where we can fit things in the same flow, and it's a work in progress. There's no like exact science to any of this. It's just because every building has a different core structure to it, right? Like some have larger floor plates, some have smaller floor plates. It just depends on the building.
So you have really good design, let's call it taste, right? Where does that come from?
I mean, it's sort of 30 years of doing it. I don't know where it comes from, actually, for me. I mean, if you look at our buildings, they just have very, warm, welcoming things. And a lot of it comes from the architects that we deal with the ideas that they've given us, and you just either like it or you don't. I mean, It's not rocket science. It's just.
But some developers, you'd be surprised, are so short-sighted on design that they almost don't care about it, and then it's a substandard product, no matter what the amenities are.
Well, then you really shouldn't be in business. I mean, if you don't care about, I don't know, for me, I grew up in the real estate business. That first time you take a step out of the parking lot, to me, landscape, just the entry to a building is like paramount to me, because however you keep your building is how you're going to be in service to someone, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you ever walk into some houses, you're like, oh my God, I wonder how they are in business, right? I mean, because it's a mess. I think that, the first impression is so important. So, and fun things like Thanksgiving and Halloween and, the holidays, we're like hay bales and
right.
We're making it feel like warm and welcoming, like your house feels when you walk into the building. Yeah. It's creating that energy that I think make people want to be around the asset. So I think it starts from when you step out of your car, mm-hmm. the parking lots. Are we keeping them and maintaining them well? Are they clean? Mm-hmm. To the entry into the building. I mean, what kind of pavers are you using? How do you feel? You don't have to go and there's a lot of value engineering in this that doesn't
Absolutely.
make it crazy expense. Yeah. And then the lobby, I mean, spaces when you walk in, they're not built for the tenant when they walk in. They're going to go into some second generation space if it's an older building. The only thing you have to show who you are is the common areas. What else do you have?
Yep.
That's going to be the reflection of maybe what they think they can get. Yes, you'll show them some other spaces, but this. You know how much taste difference there is in the world?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I could walk in your house, you'll walk into mine, you're like,
yeah. But also, they can't visualize things, right? You show someone an empty space.
There's no visualization.
9 times out of 10, they have no idea.
On a board, sometimes you have to have boards before we're finishing the construction. But so I that's what we think, and that's what we do, and we spend the money to, give that feeling of that we're a real brand.
So let's say I was coming to you to present as the architect, and I'm going to present to you, let's use the lobby as an example. I'm going to present the lobby, and we're going after the job. There's 3 or 4 other architects going after the job. What are you looking for in a presentation from us to win that job?
I mean, the initial thing for me, it's what visually is hitting me, right? And, it's like anything like that you go and you shop for, mm-hmm. right? something hits you, and then you're like, wow, that was a great idea, and you expand on it. But again, I don't think there's a rocket science to that either. It's just like you should better have done your research. Go look at some of our other buildings, right? Like, don't try to come in and fix what's not broken either.
Yeah,
a lot of people try to have their own impact in life rather than understanding the customer more. So I think understanding your customer and, you know, what was successful for them, and maybe you can give a different spin on it. But again, I keep saying it because it's true. It's not a rocket. We're not rocket scientists. It's all, you know, what's working today. Maybe you have some other examples of success stories and what worked and why that will change our mind.
Okay.
But it's a work in progress. It's
like, one of the issues
you're really
a
team. I don't look at it as like anything except, you know, the passion of the person working on it.
Okay.
The homework that they did to see what has made us successful, not just some off-kilter design because they've seen it somewhere else and, you know, it's unique to everyone. Like this whole trying to be unique thing, you know, doesn't really always work. Because
these are great tips for other architects and for me even too, because one of the things that drives me nuts about a lot of our own presentations is we go into a presentation and we just hammer home for the first 30 minutes every little detail about us. And then you've got 15 minutes left, and now we say to the client, well, let's talk about your project. And it's like, wait, we need to do this in reverse.
Listen, we're working on a hotel project, and I just sat through a couple presentations. And personally, when they started talking about that, I hate to say it, you're there because someone in our team thinks you're
qualified.
Right. So like I'm sitting there like saying, when are we getting to the creativity part? So personally, just like we did here, we got right into it.
Yeah.
I'd be like, we researched, we saw some of your other projects, like this is what we think this one could be, and you just get right into it. I mean, you know,
it's a great
I don't know, maybe I'm different. I mean, if you're in the meeting, to me that's already been. Now you can give a little background, but like next.
Yeah, move on.
Let's get into what we all really want to be excited about.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we'll show, if it's a residential project, we'll show 30 houses. And then we finally start talking about the actual house that we're there to design or residential building, whatever it might be.
And then just to give you, and then you're so sort of drained by the time you get to what matters. You may not even be focusing. Like I would be going right in. Like that's how I would do it.
I love it. I agree.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Onyx itself as a company. What sets you guys apart from your competition, especially in New Jersey? And then, you know, how do you decide what properties to invest in?
Well, I think we're very fortunate to have. First of all, I'm very fortunate to have the partner I have, Mr. John Saraceno, who's like a brother. We've been together for a long time. You know, you don't always see two people running a company that, you know, is as symbiotic as us. And, you know.
But you're different.
Yeah. We're different. We respect each other. We know each other's strengths. We give each other that belief depending on what's going on for each other. So it's great. But it's people. It's people feeling they own their job because they're part of something bigger than them. Like they feel our brand. We all feel what our brand is now. Like we're, you know, it's funny when you start a company, you're like, you know, you don't feel that and you never think you're going to get there. But when you're around long enough, you actually establish a brand. You know, I think we're a trusted brand. We're a creative brand. We're a stable brand. You know, we've been around a long time right now. So I think that's a big thing. But I think, you know, it's all about the people. It's all about the culture of how, you know, everyone owns what they're doing, but like so many times people step in and help other people when they need, you know, it's just it's a team effort. It's unbelievable. It's like
you do give a lot of leeway to your teammates, I will say, for the people running some of your departments. And one of the things, I remember you said this to me and it annoyed me first. I think this was years ago. I asked you about a project and you said, I don't know, you can't go through me. You need to go through my people. You need to get to know my people. And I was like, wow, the guy's the owner. Like how, like, and we're friends. Like what the hell, man?
I know it annoyed you.
And yeah, but at the end of the day,
how do you own?
It's true, but I feel the same way.
Okay.
Like, because when people come directly to me, I'll say, but you don't come to me, come to the designer that's designing the project. It's just as important.
Well, we're
that
also
they're
talking
doing it.
human nature, okay?
Yeah.
If I tell someone what to do and it's someone I tell them to do it with, whose fault is it if it doesn't go well?
Right, exactly. It's yours.
So if you want to scale anything, people have to own, in a positive way, their decisions.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think it's the right way. I think everyone, listen, as owners, you also have to be okay with, there are going to be mistakes. I make them every day.
Yeah.
And the fastest thing to success through a mistake is admitting it, being aware of it, being okay with it, and fixing it, right? Not like burying it or getting upset with yourself that you're never, oh my God, how is this ever going to get fixed? You just dive in, admit it, and get it done. And I think as people grow, and plus you want people to, it's their careers too. It's not just ours.
I learned a lesson from that because I don't want to go back and tell one of our designers, hey, I spoke to the client without you, even though you've been involved and I've barely been involved. And now I think you should do it this way. That's not fair to them. It's probably not right. There's all those things.
You can't scale. So if you want to scale your company properly, that's the way. I mean, unless you find some other way that I think can work, I don't see it. I mean, obviously now we're going to have AI, agentic AI. We're going to have a lot of other people be able to support all of us in our endeavors, which is only going to make us more powerful, I think, once all these things are trained. But I
agree.
But I think, listen, we all want to feel proud. We want to feel like we own it. If something goes wrong, we want to feel that we can, fix it. But without having somebody else imposing, I think, on what you're doing.
Yeah,
So.
I agree. How'd you meet your partner, John?
So when I first got into the business, I was a real estate broker, and he was working for a company that was buying assets, and I sold him his first few assets in Monmouth County, New Jersey, actually. So when we met each other, we got very close very quickly. And we helped each other early on in our career because I was able to sell things. He would focus on the stuff that I brought him, and he's the best of the best at acquisition. There's no one better than him in my mind. And I've seen everyone. He's just unbelievable. And we just created an amazing relationship and trusted each other and wanted to help each other and help each other grow, and that's sort of how it happened.
So take us through your early career. Where'd you grow up and school and get into this business?
I grew up in Monmouth County, which I actually still live in today. I took a stint and lived in the city for about 12, 14 years. Yeah. But I was always around my father, who was in real estate, and he was part of a company that built office buildings. And, I remember driving around with him, looking at stuff when I was younger, and he would take me in the buildings, and I was just fascinated by it. I was fascinated, about the creativity that a building could have if you actually cared enough to want to be that, right? And it's changed dramatically. Office buildings were different back then, right? Even just office spaces, it was more like a manufacturing type of operation, desk, cubicle. Now it's more of an experience, or like a Starbucks experience. The other thing that had an impact on me was the he would talk to me about tenants that were in his buildings, and I guess why I have a podcast, I'm just so fascinated about other people's stories and how they did it and what makes their product interesting. And, when I started out in real estate brokerage, which was my first job in Woodbridge, I was industrial. And I loved that I was going into the different industrial manufacturing buildings and seeing the product. This is how toothpaste gets to the shelf. And we take everything for granted.
Yeah.
We walk into supermarkets and everything's just there. There's such an ecosystem behind all this. So I was fascinated about it. The other thing, as I was growing up and thinking about what in real estate, why do I started as a broker. Why? I really never wanted to sit in an office. I want to be out. I want to be creating. I want to be learning. And the good thing about the real estate business is you're constantly out seeing new things and learning about new companies and new areas. And I loved understanding the different communities and how they worked, and how do you give back to we always like to like leave something better than it was in every community that we're in. So so it was really, growing up in it and knowing that it's just not my personality to sit at a desk and grind at a desk all day. Yeah. It's funny being that I own so many office buildings. I like to be out and running around. But at the end of the day, that sort of was my thought process.
How many buildings do you guys own at this point? You may know more like square footage.
Yeah, I think it's plus or minus. It's we're always selling and buying, so plus or minus about 10 million feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
And we're looking at some. We're always looking, and we're also divesting because we basically will buy something that needs the change, really focus, get it to the point where we've added that value and created something that the more traditional stabilized buyers want, right? Like we want to do the hard, heavy lifting.
Yeah, you do.
And it's risk versus reward, and that's the returns we want to create for our investors. And then there's a lot of people that they want real estate as an asset class, but they don't want to have to go through the harder part, which is really what we love.
So so some of your larger buildings, is the plan to ultimately sell them later on?
Oh, yeah, we've sold. Yeah, I mean, there's no like exact time. Like the good thing is we have flexibility with that. But yeah, once we've created all the value, we'll look to dispose of an asset.
Good for you.
And create the returns that we want to provide to our investors and ourselves. And
so your main job is really you do the capital raise, right? That's kind of your.
Well, I do capital raising. I've gotten over the last several years very much more involved in the leasing of our properties. I think when things aren't. First of all, I enjoy that. Again, I get to meet companies, and I love like bragging about our buildings. So how do you brag about them? You go meet people that may want to come there, and you give them the story.
Yeah, you're your best salesperson.
Yeah,
for sure.
But I feel when times are like tough, right? Like when buildings now are losing their brand value to this problem that we have with high rates, tenants want to feel that ownership has a real presence. So how do you make that relevant? You show up. Yeah. You show up on tours. You meet people. You get to know. And I think we've really done that anyway throughout the years of what we do. But we're all just we stepped it up even more, which is great.
Yeah,
so,
it's amazing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your podcast.
Yep.
It's the John Schultz podcast, The Myth of Overnight Success.
Yep.
And I thought of you 2 days ago, right? And what it takes to build a business, right? And I consider myself still building my business. I was in the car for over 7 hours. We had a kickoff for a new residential project, and it's not upstate New York, but it's far enough to be considered upstate for us down here in Monmouth County.
Right, totally.
And I had to drive there, had a few phone calls on the way. On the way back, I had timed it perfectly so that I could make a few different stops at rest stops and do presentations, set my computer up in my in my car and put a virtual background so it looked like I wasn't in my car, the whole thing. And
that's what you can do today.
Yeah, I did 2 presentations. I was very stressful, right? Over 7 hours in the car, racing from rest stop to rest stop so I could concentrate. But I just thought of you and your podcast because I see it on my car too all the time. And it is true that there is a myth to overnight success and what it takes to be successful. And doing a 7-hour car ride and stressing the entire time about how you're going to also do presentations. It's all part of this, machine that you create in a company and being entrepreneurial.
Listen, most successful people don't really think they have imposter syndrome, most of us, because
for sure.
you're when you really reach heights, you're like, do I even deserve this? Like, how did this even happen? So I think it's a struggle in a positive way, but for everyone. But in this fast-paced world that everyone thinks it's instantaneously, you become and it's 0.001% of those people. It may be an influencer that had their 15 minutes of fame and made a lot of money, but that's few and far between, if almost never, right? You don't realize what they were doing the 10 years that no one was doing anything, studying how to do that. Everyone thinks they just became one, right? And I think where everything is trying to be created instantaneously, I thought this topic was a good topic to level set what reality really is and what the fun part really is. If you listen, now I have 85. If you listen, the most energetic part of the podcast is when every one of them is talking about what went wrong and how they got through it, not what went right. You know, there's great podcasts that have what went right and, you know, oh my God, like, you know, I can't believe you're who you are, and which none of them actually think that way anyway. Right. They're, you know, the most humility. I got the humbleness of all the guests are unbelievable. The vulnerability of like what it really took, you get to learn about. And I think that like if you believe that the fun part is getting through the hard part to then get to the next hard part to get through that, to scale up your company, and that the most successful people are saying that it's not what you think and we didn't really know. And it took either a person or an idea or me being open to like, oh my God, this is almost over. What do I do? You know, what's the next, without quitting.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, 20, 30, 18, some are 10. It just depends on the industry, right? Sometimes you get lucky you're in an industry that scales faster. Look what's going on with data centers. But those people were in this for 20 years prior. So I think for younger people, which was trying to be the audience I was going after, which now it's not. It's with all this change in the job market, my audience is a wide age range. I was shocked, actually. Wow. I'm excited that if I can just, and I listen, when I first did, I'm like, if one person listens, my wife.
Same with this, I agree.
But I so enjoy, I get so much energy and inspiration when I'm done with these podcasts. Like what they give to me, it's just worth it. I don't care if no one listens, I'll be happy to keep doing this. Yeah. But I do think the real lesson is the right thing shows up at the right time if you keep going, but have the ability to understand maybe I have to look at that a different way, like not being afraid to admit maybe I have to pivot. Maybe I have to make a quick change that I didn't think I had to do. You know, maybe I have to ask someone for help, which I think is the biggest superpower on the planet. Like, you know, sometimes people don't want to ask for help because they think they're failing it. No, it's the opposite.
And that's really good to hear, especially for someone who's, you know, either starting a company or working their way up in a company. This idea that, that person asked for help. I assume that person had all the answers. You know, you just assume that.
No one has all the answers.
I know.
And most of the time the answers were indirectly floated to them by not being afraid to talk to people about what's not going right, like being vulnerable, like this, oh my God, like not holding it in and allowing your network effect to actually, you build your network for those moments. I mean, in YPO, we have a real big network effect with actually being able to ask different people in different industries. Yeah. You know, how'd they get through it? And, oh my God, I have this problem, you know, because there's a lot of companies. So that's why I think, you know, you don't need that to do it with your own network. You just got to form one. You got to create your network effect.
It's an amazing podcast you have. I do want to understand how you get your guests. So I looked at, obviously, I've listened to pretty much all of them at this point, but I was looking at, you've had David Rubenstein, you've had our friend Fred Vacola, Monmouth County guy down here.
He's great.
Mark Laurie, who's the founder of Jet.com and Diapers.com, and now we actually work with him at Wonder. You've had Vic Rollo, who's a big restaurateur around here. Chris Riccobono, the founder of Untuck It, who's a great guy. I thought his story is amazing. You had Dr. Darshan Shah on, who is really one of the more original, like, longevity doctors.
Yes,
I feel like a lot of people have kind of...
Well, he had to get through his own unlongevity.
His story is incredible, incredible. And then you have, like... David Bryan from Bon Jovi and Steve Sciarippa, as people know, as Bobby Bacala from The Sopranos. And then, of course, you had me, this schlub, right?
No, come on. Know your value.
How do you get your guests? Like, these are high-end guests.
I guess, you know, people like the concept of it. Like, that people love to share what went wrong. Like, when I tell people what this is about, this is a podcast to show everyone what went wrong and how you got through it, not like, because they don't want to talk about the good. They're like I said, they don't want to brag. They just,
I get it.
But they do want to share the most gut-wrenching stories that they possibly had to go through to actually get to where they are, because then so do I. It gives you validity on why you are where you are, right? Without like not always believing like, how did I get there? I'm not, this whole imposter syndrome thing. Plus, I think I've always, and I played a game with myself, I've always tried to help someone before they help me. Mm-hmm. It's like a game I play. Like even with like when I was in the service business, where I was a leasing rep, like how do I help that client before they help me? Mm-hmm. What can I learn about them to help them? Do they, what sports they like? What can I do without me getting anything in return to be able to help them? And that took years of doing, year of disappointments as well, because you can't expect back. You got to be smart about it, but you're not like you're just. And over time, when they heard I had the podcast, like people would be like, "Oh, I love that." They listen to one, they're like, "Oh, I happen to know this person." Like, so my network effect created this, right? I was out somewhere, and for some reason, I don't know why, I'll always get asked about this more than anything that I do. I was like this last week, I would say 3 out of the 4 or 5 days, I was asked, "Oh my God, I saw your podcast. Oh, what a great guest." And what I'll do is I'll be like, if you love it, is there anyone you think, would like to be on? And then you find out like everyone knows someone that we want to meet.
Yep.
Like instead of being 6 degrees of separation, I like being 1, right?
I just had a great idea, by the way, for a guest for you.
There you go.
After this, we're going to talk about it.
Even right here, like I'll walk out maybe with a really great guest, but that's how I do it. And listen, mine's not as specific as yours, right? Yeah. So, good or bad, like I have a bigger sort of
it's a bigger topic.
In that theory, maybe right? I can get different people that. Yeah. And these are also like I had Rudy on.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite movie, like Rudy was one of my inspirational movies for me. Rocky, Rudy. I love that. I still feel like I'm an underdog right now. Like I'll walk out of here feeling like I'm an underdog, like I do everywhere else I go. And like it's funny, I told my wife, like, the podcast will be a success if I can get Rudy on. Mm-hmm. And out of nowhere, I met someone that knew him. Like out of nowhere, because I was talking about my podcast and I had Rudy on.
That's pretty cool.
Not the actor, like the real one. So I think it's all by just like we were talking about buildings, like showing up for your customers, showing up to presentations, like with energy. People want to be around it and they want to be part of it. So, sometimes because of me giving, not expecting, all of a sudden you get it from somewhere else you never expect, right? Yeah. Like people will want to help you. And you got to believe that's the truth. Like there's the book Givers, Takers, Givers, Takers, Matchers. The giver, if you read the book, sometimes they're lagging behind for a while and then boom, it's game over because people really want to be around people that give. And it's funny, like my core business is real estate, but once people feel you are, they'll call you with everything that they need about anything that you're not even an expert in because they think that you're going to be the one to be able to at least direct them. Yeah. And that's an amazing thing because that opens up your network. And, I can't tell you how many people I met through that person that I helped because they called me again on something that had nothing to do with my expertise and I was able to direct them and then all of a sudden, things happen.
So you're known for technology and commercial real estate. So what are some of the technologies, that you've been involved in and where do you kind of see the future of real estate and technology and AI going?
Well, I think AI is as big as the internet being created. Maybe bigger. Like we're that moment. It's like, remember You've Got Mail? Remember like you could look up the weather? You maybe could do an email? Right. And you're like, if you couldn't program, because there was no applications ready for it yet. But then just think back. I mean, like platforms were created, all sorts of, software that is specific to something was created. Which is going to be very outdated in the very near future. The agentic AI, the actual use cases that will be able to train on what you do. Like you may be able to have 4 or 5 analysts or I don't know what you call them, that are helping you with your design. Yeah. Like while you're sleeping. Like as long as you train the models on the ability to understand what the outcome is, right, and get you back the information necessary. Like, but we're early. Like just like even remember the cell phone? Until the smartphone. We all had carried those things on our. I'm old, so we carried that thing on the shoulder, and they were in your car if you could get one.
The whole console there,
right? And then Palm Pilot, and then BlackBerry. Then it became useful.
Yep.
So I think the next 3 years, because this is going very fast, you're going to start seeing. And a lot of people are already seeing different things. I don't know if you're using any of the LLMs.
We totally use it. Yeah, we use it a lot for iterating things. We use it for we have one that's amazing. It'll turn a flat rendering into an animation.
There you go.
And it kind of makes stuff up. If there's something behind a wall, or it makes it up.
Yeah.
And it may not be correct, but it's.
But we're we're at the beginning. Even like podcast research, right? You can upload your podcasts.
Yeah.
Say, please look at all the questions that Christian asked John today.
Yep.
I'm having this next guest on. Please, with the same questions, go out and find any research I can find out about what would be interesting to talk about them.
Absolutely. I'll take the, what annoys you about architect question, and I put that in AI to get my answers back from all my previous guests, right? Because I'm trying to compile that, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it.
So it's the prompting, it's the sort of understanding what you're asking. It's going to, I think this is where critical thinking skills are going to come in. We got away from that a lot. We would be just going on different platforms and basically all the information's there. Now you're going to be able to mold what you want to see and hear and feel, depending on what that is, with critical thinking skills on how to ask questions, like how to ask better questions. Isn't that everything?
It's true.
Like, where do you find...
Or how to describe things in detail. What really do you want to get out of it?
So it's going to make us very much more succinct in how we have to critically think.
I like that, yeah.
So where, that went away a little bit with just how easy it was to use the software, how you didn't have to remember a number anymore. A lot of our critical thinking skills were sort of pushed aside. I think this is going to bring that back in spades. There'll be no choice because it's a body of information now. It's not a structured software platform where everything's been thought out for you already. Mm-hmm. And then you add to it and they add a feature and you wait forever and you add another feature and you wait forever. This is going to be the unbounded feature platform of the future. It's gonna be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, is there anything we haven't covered that you'd like to tell the audience?
No. Nope. I just very grateful to be on and
very grateful to have you.
Very, very excited about the future. I really am. Nice. I'm excited about all the different technologies and just the way people are working and getting back to, because, when retail, remember, you were never going to shop again?
That's right.
Remember never going to shop again?
That's right.
So look at what's going on. Look at the Monmouth Mall. Look what, they're doing. Look what's going on all over the state where we're making these amazing properties into these full-use properties with residential living. We're creating like really new environments now that, I think, is why you should be so excited about being in real estate right now, because everything's changing. Yes, it's scary, but now you have a chance to actually have a bigger impact if you're willing to take the risk to have a bigger impact.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Why wouldn't because real estate could get boring after a while if everyone does the same thing, But now apartments are changing. How do you amenity centers? You got the data center world now coming into our life. We're going to need all that, just like Amazon needed fulfillment centers, right? So you just got to find out where you fit and be a part of it. And, even like cold storage, right? Now with produce, they're finding they can't deliver it as well from the stores. So that's going to expand. And there's just look for what's expanding. Don't be afraid to learn something new in areas you already know. Right? It's hard to compete in different geographies if you don't know the players or the people.
Right.
And just enjoy this next wave of change.
I love it. John, thanks for being my guest here on the Anti-Architect Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You are, it's always been great, obviously, spending time with you. And thank you for everything you've helped me personally with.
Well, and you too.
Awesome. So thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So to learn more about John Schultz, you can visit onyxequities.com. You can find him on LinkedIn. And, of course, check out his podcast. You can go to johnschultz.com and or you can wherever your podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts on.
I could
Spotify
say they're
everything.
on mostly every one right now.
Yep.
Good.
Awesome. Well,
Thanks.
thank you again.
All right. Thank you.
All right, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.